Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Back under the video from Annie News, and today we are checking out how strong is Ais Wallenstein. Bit of a weird one because Ais has not been present within the current series. Bit of a weird one how much of a big deal she is for Belle, but I do feel like this series is making more of a focus on everyone else as well, which is quite cool. So anyway, let's take a back step and let's see how strong Ais actually is.
When it comes to who's the strongest amongst the first class adventurers, it really is hard to say who's above the rest. Reason being that the person who may be best suited for a 1v1 might not be so skilled at, say, boss fights.
Fair. I did like the video last week about how strong, like the strongest adventurers and everything. That was really cool as well. I like that he's doing other stuff as well as cut content for DanMachi, his boss. And if you're not watching the current season, get on it.
There's a whole selection of factors ranging from unique skills to experience that heavily sway just how powerful any given adventurer can be. So, just because Bet has magic that can make him infinitely strong, when faced against an opponent like Finn or Otar, even if there wasn't a massive level gap separating them to begin with, their experience fighting against adventurers in the Dark Age definitely gives them the advantage over a less battle-hardened Bet.
Right.
It's something I talked about more when discussing their power in my last video.
Great video.
When it comes to who's the strongest at slaying monsters, though, the single person
She's
who stands
got
above
it
the rest
made,
is by
yeah.
far Ais and her extremely powerful Avenger skill. That and her unique magic Ariel is widely considered to be one of the most powerful combinations of magic and skills in the entire DanMachi
She
universe.
is sick, like.
So, just like how I did last time, let's take a look at Ais and everything that makes her one of the strongest adventurers in Arario.
Alright.
In a world where the protagonist is leveling up once a month, it's hard to look back at Ais and be amazed with just how fast she had done it.
Okay.
What I mean is that when we're never really shown how long it takes for the average adventurer to level, that lack of a standard benchmark makes Ais's years of growth seem, well, slow.
I suppose, yeah, it's not very apparent, is it? Like, what's the average pace that an adventurer levels at? It seems like everyone does it as such a complete different, like, thing, which I kind of appreciate.
So, to put into context why Ais is such a big deal, well, with the large majority of adventurers never even getting to level 2, out of the ones that do it usually took them years.
Right, okay.
Of course, the intensity of their training is a fairly large factor in it, but if Wealth took 8 years and Lily took about 10, then
Whoa.
Ais's single year to level 2 seems rather exceptional in
Holy crap, that seems amazing.
comparison. It's a feat that stemmed from this unceasing desire to grow stronger. A passion for power that led her to train day in and day out with Finn and Gareth.
Oh my god.
So, though her stats were mediocre upon joining the Loki Familia, Ais's blind pursuit towards only that which made her stronger was a core factor in her becoming the warrior she is today. She was so absorbed in whatever Finn and Gareth was teaching her that she would completely ignore whatever toll it was having on her body,
Oh,
eventually
God.
resulting in her stats plateauing around the 600 to 800 area.
Ooh.
But even with these above average stats that would make any adventurer happy, I still wanted to grow more. These numbers that reflected her countless months of training were far too low from what she really wanted. She was no longer getting stronger as fast as she wanted to anymore. That being the case, despite the Loki Familia being against it, Ais would set out to achieve her level up. A feat that unfortunately isn't depicted in any of the novels, but is attributed at least in partial to her solo fight against Wyvern.
Okay.
The very same fight which awakened her innate aerial magic. Now, the last update we have for her level 1 stats show a clear split between her speed and power attributes. Whatever she lacks when it comes to strength and endurance, she definitely makes up for with her
Wow.
dexterity and
Okay.
agility.
Yeah, she is blipping all over the place.
Eventually magic too, as she becomes increasingly dependent on her aerial chant. We don't get to see too much else in terms of her power from levels 2 to 5, but what we do know is that each took about a year and a half. So, after only a year to reach level 2, Ais would continue her rapid growth to levels 3 and 4 only 3 years later.
Whoa.
Getting level 5 would take another 3 years itself, and
Okay.
level 6 the same, which finally brings us to the present.
Wow, that's a lot of training. Holy crap. And some people don't even get to level 2.
Specifically where we are right now in Season 4. Where she was when the anime began, though, was right at the tipping point between level 5 and level 6. Not the normal tipping point you'd expect for an average adventurer, but instead for one whose accomplishments resound all across Arario. Since the average adventurer usually levels up with C's or D's, an accomplished one would settle with mostly B's. It's the truly great, however, that would get to that S rank.
Yeah, he's like, I ain't going up a rank until I've got those Double S's, yo.
A place so extremely rare for anyone that even the gods themselves can't help but celebrate whenever someone gets there.
Cool.
So, for Ais to possess that in the magic attribute, that should go to show just how often she uses it. More than her incredible speed and her fast twitch movements, Ais's magic is what she seems to utilize the most. Before we focus on the specifics of how it works though, it was this gray area between level 5 and level 6 that Ais would find herself scaling a wall that seemed practically insurmountable.
Oh no.
What I mean is that, for weeks on end, she would slay monsters lurking in the deep floors, yet whenever she'd return, her stats would have only increased by a little bit.
It's a pain in the ass when you're grinding and you can't quite figure out the type of enemies you need to kill to get an actual decent boost.
That being the case, Ais was once again growing impatient with the rate at which she was progressing. She couldn't find that feat which was challenging enough to push her over that edge. At least not until she decided to fight a monster Rex completely solo.
Whoa.
After fighting Eudeus all on her own, that's when Ais would finally reach level 6,
Nice.
bringing us up to speed with her current level. So, with that catching us up, we can now examine the parts of her build that truly make her powerful. Her skills, magic, and development abilities, which when used together make her capable of fighting monsters significantly stronger than her. Starting things off with the development abilities, these are the passives you have a chance of unlocking after leveling. You can only get one per level, but there are times where you get multiple choices to choose from. Thus the reason abilities like Hunter and Abnormal Resistance keep popping up. Just for the sake of being thorough though, Hunter improves her stats when fighting against monsters she's fought and killed before, while Abnormal Resistance nullifies all sorts of poisons and toxins.
Okie dokie.
These are the standard two that seem to be found in almost all top tier adventurers. Where we start to get to things a bit more rare though is through the spirit healing passive shared only by Reveria and Otar. This, as I mentioned last video, is an extremely rare ability that regenerates her mind constantly. So even if Ais is casting her magic over and over, so long as there's enough time between each cast, she'll never hit mind down since this ability is always recovering it.
Oh damn, that's so sick. Like, what an ability to have.
It's a highly useful passive that most magic users would kill for.
Yeah.
Now, the last development ability unique to her build is a trait called Swordsman that likely enhances her swordsmanship. The reason I say likely is because, just like Finn's Spearman, an explanation isn't really given about it. It's more this vague mastery stemming from the weapons they specialize in. That being the case, I think it's safe to assume it buffs their proficiency with them.
Right.
That, or at least their stats while fighting a battle with them. Moving on to Ais's magic now, despite it essentially boiling down to a multi-purpose augmentation that enhances offense and defense, it's actually one of the most broken spells in the entire DanMachi universe. Mostly in part to its extremely short cast time, substantial enhancements that could make her fight at a whole level higher, then overall versatility that makes it useful in pretty much every situation. As for what it does exactly though, well, on a fundamental level, all it does is cover her body and sword with air currents. It's a magically generated wind that not only serves as this extra shield boosting her defenses, but also as this massive buff increasing her attack power and speed.
Oh, look how she's able to move with it like that. It's so slick, it's so smooth, and then just boom, you're dead.
Basically any place the wind is covering becomes much more durable and is enhanced with greater speed and power. That may not seem like that big of a deal, but when she's capable of choosing where and how to apply her wind, that makes it an extremely versatile spell with a practically infinite number of uses.
Sorry, that just made me juggle. I'm so immature. The way she's able to control her wind, it just made me think of farts. Anyway.
So, to put into context some of its applications, her speed is increased to the point where she can deliver 2 slashes instead of 1, while her defensive wind can deflect projectiles right back at the opponent throwing it.
Of course it can.
When applied to her custom-made Durandal, the magic enchantment combined with her exceptional swordsmanship, more often than not makes up for the massive strength gap between herself and her opponent, allowing her to easily deflect the attacks of those who are physically stronger than her.
Class.
In terms of a more utility-based approach, Ais can actually use her wind as a type of radar. Any breeze that's produced by her magic can then be sensed as part of this wider net, expanding her spatial awareness. I wouldn't say it's as effective as Mikoto's skill, but it does prove helpful in finding monsters. If Ais wanted to be more of a support, then she could simply choose to relocate her winds and buff another person. Like, on 2 separate occasions, Ais had buffed Bet's feet. Once to make his attack stronger against Revis, and another time to make him faster.
Actually, yeah.
Then, with increased mobility that makes mid-air movements completely possible, there really is no limit to how creative she can get with it. Now, it's not really known exactly how far Ariel can take Ais's prowess in combat, but it seems her body would give out long before reaching the upper limits of it. You see, as a spell that pushes her past her natural limits, there's a significant amount of strain that comes when she uses it for too long. Since her speed and power increase exponentially, it's only natural her body would reach a point where it just couldn't keep up anymore. So that means the limits of this spell is really just a matter of how she chooses to limit herself. It's a restricting factor that becomes even more dangerous when combined with Avenger. Before we get to that though, I just want to mention how that even with Ariel being one of the strongest magics out there, Otar can still handle it extremely easily.
Alright.
Not only can he keep up with Ais's Ariel boosted
Oh,
movements,
yeah,
but her
of
wind-based
course.
defenses were easily shattered with a single swing from his greatsword, proving once again just how big of a difference a single level makes.
Yes, man.
Surprisingly enough though, even with that massive gap separating the two of them, Ais still becomes better at monster slaying when she's using her Avenger skill. It's a rare skill that's thought to be the most powerful in all of Arario. Of course, that's without considering the existence of Bells, but out of all the ones possessed by the entire Loki familia, Loki herself says that this is the strongest. Now, as for what it does, the effects are actually quite simple. Whenever Ais finds herself fighting against a monster, her power will grow in proportion to how much she hates that monster. So, just like how Bel's Realis freeze levels him up faster with his desire to grow, so too does Ais's Avenger make her stronger with her desire for revenge. A key thing to note about how it's used though is that, unlike Bel's being a passive that's active all the time, Ais needs to consciously activate hers like a sort of trigger.
Oh, right,
It's
okay.
a skill she has to choose to initiate just like how Bel does with Argonaut. That being the case, there are times when she can fight without the need to use it, but whenever it is active, it's almost always in tandem with Ariel. Reason being that if Ais is facing off against a monster strong enough to warrant her forbidden skill, then most definitely she's gonna need her strongest magic too. So, though I can't talk about the specifics of Avenger's buff by itself, I can discuss how it goes to make Ariel even stronger. First, it makes her winds far more violent than they were before, eventually enveloping her body in these dark air currents that grow increasingly turbulent. Of course, the more hate she allows herself to be consumed by, the more powerful Avenger becomes, and the stronger she herself becomes as well.
Bit of a dark side to it, then, like, yeah. Oh man, let your hate consume you, and then turn to the dark side.
It's not just Ariel that gets this massive increase in power, but also her already enhanced stats as well. As you'd expect, though, with Avenger going towards making Ariel even more potent than it already was, that meant enduring it was even harder. So, if Ais was to ever use Avenger with Ariel, then it would only be for a few minutes since her body would start to destroy itself.
Damn.
Like, just that brief fight with Asterius was enough to cause her hands to tremble. Now, to give just a glimpse at what this skill is capable of, well, back when Ais was level 1, that wyvern she was fighting solo was only killed because of Avenger. As a middle floor monster whose power far surpassed her own, there was no way she should have been able to slay it like the way she did here. Yet, by subconsciously activating her Avenger skill together with Ariel, Ais was able to obliterate its body with just the force of her wind alone.
Wow.
A level of power Riverian knew shouldn't have even been capable for a level 1. So, despite Avenger's exact limits not being known, I think it's safe to assume it can make up for an entire level, even more so when it's combined with Ariel. The main problem with a skill like this, though, is that for all its power, it's still only useful against monsters. So, even though Avenger and Ariel could very well make her stronger than even Otar, it's not a reasonable scenario to consider since it's not even possible. Unless Ais somehow starts being able to change who she perceives as a monster, Avenger will remain as this buff that's only useful in certain situations. But yeah, that's pretty much how strong Ais is. She may not be the best at fighting people, but when it comes to slaying monsters,
Oh, she's got it
Otar
in
falls a bit short.
spades fighting
I think
monsters.
with a little bit of time and practice, though, Ais could easily hone Ariel to become one of the strongest weapons out there. I mean, even without using Avenger to buff it, the sheer number of uses Ariel provides is enough to, I think, overcome anyone. It really just comes down to how it's used. Now, before I go, if you happened to enjoy this video, then please do leave a like and let me know in the comments. You can also check out my previous one if you want to know how strong
Good video.
Otar, Finn, and
Very
Fenrir
good
are.
video.
But anyway, as always, thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this type of anime content, then you already know what to do. So, until next time.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Cool. Nice video. They're always very good and informative. I news stuff. Love it. It's great. DanMachi's boss. This current season's incredible. I haven't watched today's episode because I've been working. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you to my patrons. If you want to have your name at the end of every video I upload, link in the description to the Patreon page. $1 a month is our support channel. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you guys very much for that. And thank you all for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe, leave comments down below. Let me know what I should watch, discuss in future videos. I'll see you guys, all you guys, next time. Bye.